G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome everyone. Today I'm interviewing Laura Patrick from Kids Physio based in Vancouver, Canada. Thanks for your time today, Laura.
Yeah, you bet. I'm really glad to be here.
Let's start with how we know each other. I think that was on LinkedIn, wasn't it?
Yeah, you got it. Mm-hmm. LinkedIn. That's one of those places that I don't always know if I'm going to make meaningful connections, but you've proved that different, and I'm really glad that you reached out.
Thanks. Great. Tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
Great. We are a pediatric physiotherapy practice, private practice, and I like to summarize it this way. We are just physio, just kids. And so we provide meaningful services to children to help them overcome injury, disability, and just everyday movement. What that looks like in terms of making money is that we are fee for service. So we provide specialized pediatric physiotherapy in super fun clinic spaces. So children come to see us in our spaces, and they get better from injury, or they achieve really cool long-term results from their disability. So things like being able to walk independently, or even just push their own wheelchair, or recover from concussion, or babies maybe being able to roll independently. So it's something as small as that.
Yeah.
We are located just in Canada right now, largely just in British Columbia and Ontario, the two bigger provinces, but we're really excited to be opening all the way across Canada. We've got a location that's being announced as far east as you can go.
Great. Any plans for America?
Not yet. We're waiting from an organic perspective to attract somebody from the US who's really, really keen to perhaps bring the entire franchise to the US. So I don't know that I'm necessarily the right person to do that, but we are certainly open to speaking with those from the States.
I was going to ask that. So the sites you have at the moment, are they franchise or they're within your business?
Yeah, we have a pretty unique business model. We did operate first with the corporate structure and the corporate growth and partnering with physiotherapists. And in 2018, we decided to franchise. And so now every location that we do open is a franchise. And at this point, we're just operating in Canada, but of course, always open for growth.
Yeah, great. So how many sites do you have currently in the short term, and all of them are franchised?
No, so I've back in 2006, I started independently on my own, opening the first corporate location actually in 2010. So it was kind of cool being an independent, renting space from another person. As a physiotherapist, that's pretty common, is just to rent out a room. And that's how I got my start. But decided that it was a little bit too siloed. I didn't like working independently on my own. Really wanted to develop more of a group, which is why we actually went from being Kids Physiotherapy or Kids Physio to Kids Physio Group when we added more people. And at the time, opened one location, thought that was going to be the very best that I could do as a young entrepreneur, and ended up actually meeting an incredible physiotherapist who said, you know what, Laura, I really want to bring this to Surrey, British Columbia, which is just one of our suburbs here in Vancouver. And I ended up partnering with him, but retaining ownership of the systems and brand. So I had a pretty savvy lawyer at the time who gave us a cool new structure, and I ended up partnering with him. And then I partnered with two others to open 5 locations in the greater Vancouver area.
Yep.
After that, we moved on to the franchise model. It just was pretty challenging to grow in that corporate structure partnership, but it's been a really cool way to start the business.
Yep, great. And so how many sites now?
We have 9 sites that are open. The 10th is currently under construction and should be opening in early January. And then 11 and 12 they're just searching for the absolute right place, but we have sold those franchise locations.
Oh, great. So 7 of the 12 are franchise sites.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you got it. Good math.
Yeah. I've had enough coffee this morning to do the math.
Good.
That's fantastic. Tell us how you started out.
Well, I was absolutely bitten by the pediatric bug early on in my pediatric career. So, or physiotherapy career, I should say. I am from a family of teachers, and I had the science brain. So what was kind of cool is going into physiotherapy school, I knew that I really wanted to perhaps work with children in some capacity, but I thought that maybe that ship had sailed. So I was in physio school when I realized that physiotherapy also worked with children. That wasn't something that was news to me when I started the program, but became just that place of, well, this is absolutely what I want to do. So I got my first job or took my first job out of finishing my master's of physiotherapy in the public health system here in Vancouver, and quickly recognized that there were way more kids than I could ever see from a public perspective. And of course, made really meaningful relationships and connections with some of the kids on my caseload. And one of those children, her name's Christina. I talk about her all the time because she is the reason that I started Kids Physio Group. She has cerebral palsy. She's now in her 20s, but she has cerebral palsy, and she was having a major surgery at the Children's Hospital here in British Columbia. And her mom approached me as her public physiotherapist and said, Laura, what are we going to do when Christina actually gets discharged from hospital? And I said, well, my role as your public physiotherapist is to provide 6 sessions for you, six after you've had your surgery. And then after that, we have to find a private physiotherapist for you. And at the time, I came up really empty-handed. And truthfully, there were only a few people in all of Vancouver that were doing home visit-based private physiotherapy, and they were just all booked up. They couldn't take on the contract, and I just couldn't find anybody. And so Mom planted a seed in me and said, well, could you do it? Mm-hmm. And the short answer is, well, of course I could, but I would have to quit my job in order to do that, because it was quite a conflict of interest for a public therapist to work privately.
Yep.
And so it was sort of just saying that out loud. Well, I would actually have to quit my job. And being young, 2 years out of school and without a family, without a mortgage, without any dependents or anything like that, I actually saw that as being a huge opportunity. So I ended up starting my private practice out of need, like legitimate need for physiotherapy services in Vancouver that were specific for children. From that, working for 4 years, with my group of kids and bursting at the seams and not having room to take on more, I had to grow if I was going to continue servicing my community. And so I then launched into really, okay, well, what does business ownership look like? And we started with 1 location, 2, 3, 5, took a bit of a break from there, learned how to actually run the business. And then, like I say, moved into that franchise model where now I multiply it by training other people how to do what I did here in BC.
Great. Fantastic. And so you started in 2006. So how old were you then?
I was 27 years old.
Wow, that's audacious. I think that was the age I jumped out of corporate and started mine as well. Yeah.
It didn't feel audacious, I can say that for sure, because my business plan was so small that I just needed to see a certain number of kids in order to make my rent. But of course, realizing very, very quickly, especially when I signed that first lease, that there was an awful lot more to learning what I needed. And I'm really glad that I didn't know what I needed to do back then, because I don't think I would have done it.
Do you have some key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth of the business?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think one is just clinic locations. We've gone from, my back garage or renting space from somebody else to having 9 clinics open and 12 by the, end of the first quarter of 2022. So in 11 years, I think that that's pretty great from an actual physical location perspective. But I think one of the things that, people ask me is, well, that's great that you've opened all these clinics, but what is more exciting to you? And for me, that's actually the number of clients that we have impacted over the years. And we've quadrupled in the last 5 years, the number of clients that we can see on an average month. So 4 times as many as we saw 5 years ago. That for me is really, the most important, because it's what we do. It's the impact that we have on the lives of children.
Yeah. Great. What about team members? You started with yourself, and what number of full-time equivalents would you be up to now?
And this has probably been the hardest part, is actually the people part.
Yeah.
So in order to get that, impact on clients. We have to have people to do it. I recognized that very early on, that it wasn't going to be me that was going to see all of these clients. And so today we have 95 employees. So we're getting super close to 100 active employees.
Great. Yeah.
And those 95 employees look like 60 full-time equivalent.
Yep. That's amazing growth over, effectively 15 years starting out as your own, and then 4 or 5 years later starting to add other people. That's wonderful growth. Congratulations.
Thank you.
When was the moment you felt like you'd succeeded?
This question, I don't know. Have I succeeded? Yeah. I mean, if you look at these smaller goals, for sure, I've succeeded. I've succeeded in meeting that goal of treating children and giving kids, especially here in Vancouver and even the center, one of our larger growth cities, Kelowna, which is our central interior. And in Ontario, we've given families a place to bring their children where they can be seen, heard, and supported in their healing. And so that for me is definitely success. Families don't have to fly across the country to get service. They can drive. And that's really a big goal. So have I succeeded? Yes. But we still have lots of room for growth. We have families that still can't come to one of our locations. And so we want to make sure that we can grow across Canada in order to be able to have families be able to not have to fly to get to come and see us.
Yeah, great.
I don't think I can say that moment I've achieved full success, but there's been lots of successes along the way.
And what does success look like to you? Anything else to add to that?
I think that success looks like every single time we open a clinic, that those clinics can become profitable within the first month, if possible.
Yeah.
Now, that means that a clinic is owned by a physiotherapist, and that physiotherapist is generating a good chunk of the revenue. But we do believe that we operate really successful clinics when they're profitable within the first month of opening.
Yeah.
I know that is success because I'm passing that wisdom on to another clinic owner in order to be able to become profitable much before I was profitable when I opened my first location. So it is really exciting to me when our clinicians come back after their first quarter and say, can you believe this? We're profitable. And I'm like, yeah, I can believe that because that's what we're selling you.
Yep.
But it's pretty exciting for somebody who started a clinic and we were definitely not profitable within the first year or so.
Yeah, I was going to ask on franchising. I've had a few people on and I'm getting mixed reviews or feedback on whether franchising is a good thing to do. So it sounds like overall it's been a positive thing for you.
Yeah, it has largely been positive. I will say that it's a massive learning curve. I am a registered physiotherapist by trade who's obviously invested a ton in learning business systems, but the franchise side of things has really pushed us as a company to really make sure that we are operating in a way that we feel really proud and really confident to be able to say, okay, we're asking of people finances upfront as well as ongoing royalties to use our name and brand and systems. And we absolutely need to be ironclad in what we do. So that was and is our biggest challenge, to continue to operate in a way that we feel really, really confident. But for the most part, yes, it was a fantastic decision for a service-based business like ours that is niche market. Yeah. It is very specific to open a clinic like this. And we recognize that it takes a lot of work. And I think it was definitely the right move. And it has given me the opportunity to scale in a way that I, as the owner of the franchise, are able to see a little bit more of a faster return on the sale, rather than partnering with somebody where I'm getting a dividend after profit.
Yep, got it. And it allows you to scale to help more kids and families.
Exactly. And I think from a franchise perspective too, clinicians who want to become clinic owners, this is such a wonderful opportunity for them, because not only are they still able to treat clinically, but they get to become this clinic owner themselves. So they 100% own their business. That's the best part, is I actually am training other clinicians to become successful clinic owners. And that's, I think, probably if I was to go back and answer that question again, that's what success looks like to me, is these incredible clinic owners that get to go on to do what I did, but in a much faster way.
And for the owners, it's also great because you take the marketing off their plate, some of the admin and back office, particularly the systems and the procedures, etc. So they get to focus on, the kids, a lot more of their time on the kids and helping.
Exactly. Yeah.
Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast-growing business?
So it's pretty difficult for me to generalize because we are such a niche market, but one of the things I would say is sharing the story or the testimonial or the video of what we do to our market. And our market looks like other parents, other families. It also looks like making sure that the family doctors or the physicians that are those referring to us are the ones that get to see the outcome of what's going on. So we invest very heavily in testimonial type videos or marketing of the power of the word of mom. So we want families to talk about us. And I think that's why when we get really high, say it's Google reviews or Google scores, or even our own EMR or electronic medical records asks families for a review at the end of their session. And when we get those, we ask for permission to share them, whether that be through sending out, social media information about that or posting it on our website. But we do ask for families to share, and we actually go as far as asking them to talk about it with their own friends and family, whether that be posting on their own social media networks to get more kids to hear about us. So we really value that word of mom and dad.
Yep, great. How did you fund your business?
I bootstrapped it. For me, it was, I remember the day that I went, I was 27 years old and I was still going home to my parents' house to do my laundry. And I said to my dad, I think I'm going to quit my public health job and start this private practice. And he was fantastic in that moment. He's an entrepreneur himself. He went from working in the government to being a consultant on his own in his later career. And he really saw the value in being able to work for yourself. And so he helped me in the early stages. And then most recently, we received a little bit more capital from the banks. But for the most part, it was my own family capital and bank financing.
Yeah. And so, no, you haven't taken on investors at all?
No, I have not.
Yeah, great. I think I know the answer to this one. If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
You bet. Without a doubt. That's a hard yes for me.
Yeah, great.
I still absolutely love what I'm doing. I'm not treating clinically right now, but I still absolutely love what this company does. And it brings me a ton of joy. So absolutely.
Great. Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
I think this one triggers me a wee bit, I will say, because I do think that most entrepreneurs can highlight the most stressful point in their small business. And I'm not going to say COVID because that wasn't it. We've been very lucky and fortunate to be an essential service and open during most of COVID. And our families have been very reliant on us during this really challenging time for families. So that wasn't it. I would say that it was when I was running my business with, we had 3 locations at the time, but we were running it as a group of independent contractors. And that is typical in this industry here, especially in Canada. I don't know how it operates globally, but here in Canada, that's pretty typical that physiotherapists could act as independent contractors. But it brings a lot of challenges, we found. And we didn't have great people systems in place because we hired independent contractors and they were largely working for themselves. But there was a time where there was someone who took advantage of that position, got really close, gained trust, and ultimately walked away and opened a similarly competitive business. And, that's a time that I can look back on and say that, wow, I was not clear in my expectations. I had not shared my values very publicly. I had not lived and breathed the values of the company and shouted them from the rooftops and said, this is what my expectations are of you. And so we went through a big journey of rebuilding as far as transitioning everybody who wanted to stay into commission-based employees. And I actually consult to other clinic owners about that transition because it was very successful and it has taken our business to be able to, in the last 5 years, actually quadruple.
Yep.
And so though, the biggest stressful point at the time, I can look back and say, like, I would never want to be in that position again. It ultimately allowed us to grow in a way that had we not gone through that, we wouldn't, I suppose we could be here, but we wouldn't have necessarily gone in this trajectory as quickly as we did.
I've had a few guests on that have said that a key employee early on in the year saw this is a great model and jumped ship and started something out themselves. It's terrible, massive lack of integrity, obviously. Out of interest, is their business still going?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's frustrating.
And truly, I wish them the very best. I honestly, if I'm not the right person to work with, that's okay. Yep. But I think as a young, what I learned as a young, and by young, I don't mean necessarily in age, but by young, I mean young in my wisdom as an entrepreneur. Had I just been able to look at that as I'm not the right person for them to keep going with, that would have saved me a lot of grief on my end. I don't wish ill will in any way. And the good news is that more kids are being seen. So if I look at it very strategically, okay, we might not be able to be in that specific area in the market, but at the end of the day, kids and families are being seen, which is what my business is all about. So I'm definitely on the flip side, on the other side, many years later, feeling just fine about it. Yeah,
that's a great way to look at it. What area of business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
Managing people.
Yeah. So as I say, it's the hardest thing in small business and it's where the value's at.
Yeah. And I think I'm pretty good with people. And so I think that's the misconception that a lot of people who go into business typically are pretty good with people, especially if you're in a service-based business. And I thought that my God-given natural abilities of connecting with people, and we were doing the same thing. We wanted to do the same thing, but that doesn't necessarily translate to being really, really good at managing other people and growing other people. And so one of the first things that I did, and, it wasn't even when this big stressful point or challenge happened, I had already started realizing that I wasn't managing the team, or I didn't have the skills that I needed to be able to manage the team in the way that I wanted to. And so I had hired a management coach, and I was starting that process when this happened. And so the cool part is that person actually really helped me through this. And we've taken it in, and I'm still working with her today, and we've taken it in such a way that now I have gained the skills needed in order to be able to successfully manage people, hold them accountable, have one-on-ones, grow people, all of the things that actually create culture on purpose. And now I'm then teaching other people to do that. And so I think that was probably one of the greatest gifts or learnings that I would say is if you don't know how to manage people, invest in that, especially if your business is based on people. Our biggest expense is people. So if I'm not actually learning how to treat them and treat them well, then I wasn't going to keep growing for sure.
No. What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
I think this comes with a feeling of overwhelm sometimes. So fast growth for me can come in the form of, am I the right person for this? I might have started this business, and I think a lot of founders and owners and people who are in that CEO role still as the founder probably share a very similar sentiment is, am I the right person still? And I make sure that I get feedback from many different avenues, not necessarily just people on my team, but people outside of that, to make sure that I am still year over year right now the right person. And I believe that I am still. And I hope that I can stay in this position for a lot longer, but I probably will still have to, keep making sure that overwhelm doesn't creep in to the point where I really don't feel like I'm the best person for the job.
Yep. And what do you love most about growing a small business?
Giving other people the chance to do a job that fulfills them.
Yep.
Particularly at this time in their lives. Like, I don't expect that people are going to love doing front desk reception at a pediatric physiotherapy clinic forever, but you'd be surprised at, they could be a front desk receptionist at a typical adult clinic, or they could work with us. And if they love children and they love seeing kids come through the door, that's really exciting. So even for our part-time weekend receptionist positions, that's really exciting to give someone a chance that really fulfills them today. And, you know, on a bigger scale, this is fulfilling a physiotherapist who comes out of school and says, I have always wanted to work in private practice peds and I've never been able to. And you've just opened a clinic in Kelowna, British Columbia. And that's where I actually grew up. And now I get to come back from Vancouver to Kelowna and work in the job of my dreams. And so those kinds of things, when I see other people be really fulfilled in their jobs because of a decision that I've made and I've kept making, that is absolutely my favorite part about growing this business.
What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
Well, working with my coach on the thought model.
Yep.
So if you haven't heard the thought model before,
no,
I'm happy to talk about it.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So big misconception is that we get to believe, or we do or don't believe, the thoughts that we think. Mm-hmm. And those thoughts impact how we feel, and those feelings impact how we act, and those actions impact a result. And if we don't get the result that we're looking for, the best thing we can do is go back to, okay, well, how am I initially thinking about a circumstance? What thoughts am I choosing to believe? So the circumstance is the circumstance. It's not going to change. But what choice and thought do I have? And if you can become more mindful about that thought line, mm-hmm. and go back and say, okay, well, I can actually choose to think about it this way instead, and I'm going to get a very different result.
Yep.
So that in and of itself has been the biggest mindset shift. And I would say that that works in business for me, but it also has worked tremendously in my personal life. And what's cool is that we teach the thought model in our company, and we support our employees around choosing different thoughts. Obviously, we're not telling people what to do, but there is going to be a thought at the end of the day that is going to get a different result than you're looking for. And so what's cool is that we're all kind of speaking the same language at the clinics, and even across the company. And so that's really, from that perspective, something that has supported the business growth too. So it started with me, mm-hmm. and shifting my mindset, then teaching others from a leadership perspective, how to support the rest of their team as well. But I will say it is sometimes frustrating, because someone will be like, but I don't want to choose another thought. I just want to have this thought. Well, listen, I've been there too. And I think we all are. But when we're looking to get a different result, it does come back to the thoughts that we're choosing.
I've just envisaged my 8-year-old when she's hangry saying exactly that.
It is fun to use the thought model with your kids, and, yes. It's super powerful, because can we actually teach our younger generation? And I'm not just talking about the 8-year-olds, I'm talking about the 17-year-olds and those who are in our business who maybe have been modeled something different from their parents.
Yep.
And the cool part is that we get to really own those thoughts, and that does significantly impact our day-to-day. So it's pretty cool.
I'm going to try that on her, because the Jedi mind trick's worn off. She can see through that now. So
I have an 8-year-old too. Yeah. I can say it doesn't always work, but yeah. It's helping him have that aha moment sometimes, is like, oh, I can choose to think that this is actually really good.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
What's the number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
Yeah, I would say number one habit, get coaching, get mentorship. I early on sought mentorship from what was called the Forum of Women Entrepreneurs here in Vancouver. And I've had a mentor from the very beginning, all the way back in, I guess it was 2009 that I had my first mentor. And this was somebody outside of my business, outside of my industry. And what was cool is that I didn't realize how much value they were going to bring. And even though we didn't have similar businesses at all, this person recognized the power of the mom community for my business. Mm-hmm. I wasn't a mother at the time, so that was super powerful for me. Yep. If I hadn't had a mentor, I maybe wouldn't have realized that so early on. And then what it's done is transition me to really being confident in having coaching in my life. And that coaching is something that I pay for. So mentorship, not so much paying for. And I think that's a great start for people from a habit perspective. Mm-hmm. Have the habit of meeting with somebody who can have a reflective perspective on your business, one that's outside, and opening up from a vulnerable perspective and sharing those challenges with somebody has just allowed me to not be so protective of my business. And even when going through that big challenge, I was so open about talking with my coach or with my mentor about it. And that's really what helped me to be able to see things differently. Had I not had the trust in those other people to be able to peel back some of the layers of whether it was my leadership style or my heart or my values or something like that, I think I really could have become quite hardened as a leader and not then moved through it in a way that actually allowed us to propel and grow.
Yeah, often, as they say, when you're standing in the forest, you can't see the trees. And having someone independent outside, whether it's a mentor or coach, also they can challenge you, and they will often observe the words that you're using and then pick up on things to say, hang on, let's talk about this for a moment, or why are you thinking it that way?
Yeah. And I have a great spouse. He's wonderful, but this isn't the role for him, right? Because I find that I'm battling in that moment, that there's something in that relationship because it's just too close, right? So he's really like loving and supportive of me. When the challenge was going on, he was thinking about me. He wasn't necessarily thinking about the strategy. And so I don't ask him for that role. And I would just caution others, if you do have a partner or a spouse, especially one that, my husband's in business. And so he's actually very, very thoughtful and very good about it. But for some reason, it just wasn't the right person, right? So making sure that you're not also burdening your family member with that and keeping your personal relationships probably out of your business would be a really good habit to get into as well.
Be the change you want to see in your business. Become more productive and less stressed with our free Transform Your Performance online course. Once you see the benefits, put your entire team through the course at no cost. We start out by telling you the secret to guaranteed success, then over 100 lessons help you be more focused, present, productive, and feel more in control about work. growasmallbusiness.com.
Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening?
Early on, I had this mantra, this statement that I would say all the time, like, I just feel like the right people are walking through the door to join the team. And I believe that is true. It still is a true statement. It's because we all believed in sort of this mission or vision of providing fun, world-class physio for kids. Today, though, it's because we actually shout that from the rooftops. What is our mission, vision, and values? We hire based on those things. And so now we have this really, really clear expectation for people who are joining our team is like, oh, I can see myself working there because I also believe those things. So when we're really, really clear with sharing our mission and our vision and our values, then we actually attract the right people. Whereas before I was really just relying on the mission and the vision, and someone's like, well, I like pediatric physiotherapy too, so I'll join your team. Now we've really added in that values piece. And then it just gives us a lot more confidence that employee is likely going to stay and grow with us because they really believe in the values of the company.
Yep. What are some things you'd recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
Everybody join the mission, vision, and values bus. Come on, come sit with us, come join and grow with us. And we're just like absolutely fired up about building our company of incredible leaders who want to do exactly what we're doing. And if there's ever a moment, and we talk about this the very first day in our culture training, and we have a very long culture training on the first day. And we talk about this, like if there's ever a moment where you don't feel like you're really deeply connected and loving the work that you're doing here, let's talk about it. No judgment. We take this very seriously. If it's not filling your cup any longer, let's figure out, is there a way that we can actually make that happen? Is there something we can do to either change your perspective or change something we're doing? There could be little things that actually add up, but sometimes it actually just isn't the right fit. And as long as we can release somebody and say, it's okay, they often just make the choice to go.
Yep.
So that's been really eye-opening. And there's a lot of people that come in to work with children, especially in a pediatric physiotherapy environment, who think like, this is absolutely what I want to do. I 100% want to grow and be an excellent pediatric physiotherapist. And then a couple months in, they're like, actually, I don't really like kids as much as I thought I did. And, no disrespect, they are not easy to work with.
Yeah. Yes, I know.
So if it doesn't totally fill your cup and you actually see yourself working in sports ortho with high level elite athletes instead, then, go and do that, because here you're going to be seeing tons and tons of different kids, and they're all going to either make you super excited and you're going to laugh a lot because they say really funny things. And we have this incredible Slack channel of kids say funny things. This is what they said. But if that doesn't fill your cup, then we're probably not the right people for you.
Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
Okay. Can we just get real about balance? There isn't a ton.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm a mom. I run my house. I have an incredible family. I'm a sister, and my parents live down the street. So my friend circle relies heavily on me. This is not easy to balance all this stuff. I love to exercise. I love to play piano. How do we fit it all in? I think the reality is that I'm really careful with blocking my downtime as my downtime.
Yep.
And that has come as a result of like absolute requirement in order for me to be a happy human. So, I think for me personally, and I'm certainly not going to preach this on everybody. I have a strong faith background, so that's really helpful. I've got this sort of nice rhythm of taking my Sundays off.
Yep.
That has been really, really, really helpful. I think people just have to figure out what works for them when it comes to balance. But for me, it's having my downtime as very, very with strong boundaries.
Yep.
This is my downtime.
How much professional development have you invested in yourself?
Hours.
Yep.
And hours, weeks and weeks, years and years. I started this off very early on, joining the Forum for Women Entrepreneurs in 2009. And that was not only mentorship, but also a lot of education involved in that. And it was actively doing that while being an entrepreneur. So I didn't start that and then become an entrepreneur. I was doing it at the same time. And we learned from so many different entrepreneurs who came in and did lots of speaking and talked to us about marketing and all sorts. Just a huge array of courses throughout that. And then I got coaching. So, and I do this every week. I actually have coaching twice a week through my leadership coach. And she does the support on management of people, as well as supporting me as a leader to show up in a way that I'm really proud every day.
Yeah, great. Anything else on mentors or coaches you want to share with the audience?
Mentors or coaches? For my mentors, I've cycled through those about every 2 years. So typically we connect for a year, maybe 2. And then move on to a different mentor in a very, very different capacity. So even just a couple of years ago, I had a mentor that owned a bunch of franchise locations of a coffee shop. And he was wonderful because early on, he gave me that perspective of what it's like to be a franchisee, because I'm actually now selling to a franchise. So making sure that you're pulling mentors from a whole variety of different places to support. But if you find an incredible coach, then my experience has been stick with someone who knows you. Yep. And you can really trust.
And how did you find your coach?
I found my coach because I was really struggling to manage people. I have this incredible business best friend. Her name is Jen, and she owns a similar business where we actually have we have 2 joint venture locations together. So we don't have shares in each other's companies or anything like that. We truly just have this joint venture where we share space. She runs a pediatric kids gymnastics facility, and 2 of our clinics share space. So we've got the kids physio on one side and the gymnastics on the other. And Jen and I have become very, very good friends. And she also, I think at the same time, we were kind of growing our businesses, side by side, seeing each other grow. And we both kind of had that moment where the wheels started to fall off when we weren't managing our teams very well. Yep. And she actually had a manager in place who said, I really need some management training. She said to him, okay, great, go and find a couple of online courses and we'll see. He actually put us in front of this woman. And then both of her and I have actually stayed on and have maintained the coaching of what one of her employees actually found for us.
Oh, terrific. Do you have a board of directors or advisors?
No, I do not. I certainly have advisors from the perspective of my senior legal team, accounting, bookkeeping, and leadership, but we haven't started a board of director or advisors for anything specific. It is something that's on my horizon, though, I will say. I think what's also pretty unique is that I'm part of a small business group through my church. And that's been really eye-opening because they all come from a really similar faith perspective, and they're also entrepreneurs. And so it's an opportunity, again, just to be in front of a small group of people that know you and you can trust has been, something that I pair very specifically when I'm getting legal advice and accounting advice that is very, in those people's wheelhouse. I have to make sure that I'm filtering it through my values as well. And that's been really nice to have that secondary group.
All right, Laura, I want to do our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
Preventing it from negatively impacting my family and friends, how I spend my free time. So I have to consciously turn this off. This is absolutely a regular practice that I cannot get that wrong, because it really negatively impacts relationships.
Yeah, it's hard when your business is always bouncing around your head. When you're with your family or friends, or just having some time to yourself. It took me years to get that the habit built, and I've got a notepad effectively on my phone. Any ideas, I just jot them down, and I know I'm not going to drop it, so I'll stop thinking about it. But I have to constantly work on it.
Yes. Yeah. And I, reflecting on even just a day recently, I went out for coffee with a very, very good girlfriend who I've been friends with since high school. We've known each other for years. And she spent, I think, the entire time just asking me questions about my business. She's so proud of me. She's like, this is amazing. Lori, you've done such a great job. And, sort of, I left that thinking like, oh, that's great. But I don't want to talk about it in those coffees too. Yeah. It's great. I still have to kind of figure out a way to rein that in, and then go into more of the personal life stuff. But it is so hard because it bleeds so heavily into my personal life. And I am defining myself still as a business owner. Sometimes first I'm a mom and a wife and all those other things, but I am very defined by my business still.
Yeah, I'm conscious about it these days, especially if I'm speaking with another business owner. One friend in particular, I know he listens to this, that if his wife is there with us, I've had to say a couple of times, let's not talk about business, because, we talk about it all the time when we're just you and I. So when there's other people around, let's talk about something else.
Yes, absolutely.
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
This was one that was, I pulled it out because I wanted to be able to show you, but this was one that was recommended to me by my coach, and it's called Do Lead. And it's by Les McEwen.
Oh, great.
And it's a tiny little book. It's not big. And it's one of those ones that I actually typically will take with me when I'm going on vacation, and I'll read it again. But it's just things like leadership styles and understanding the concepts around leadership. Leadership for me has been one of the most important tools that I've had to learn how to do really well, so that I can then teach others how to do it really well too. Because the only way that my business is going to grow is if I can pass on some of that wisdom around how to lead others in a way that you feel really proud at the end of your day, and you put your head on your pillow and you're like, did I do the right thing? And for me, having a book that you can actually read through, in one sitting, or on the plane if you're heading somewhere, or over the course of a couple of days or a week, something that you can really digest, that's been really good for me.
I haven't heard of that book, but I've just added it to my Audible list. So thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
Yeah, I'd love to share my leadership coach, actually. So her name is Chris Plackey, Kris Plachy.
Yep.
She is, started off as being that coach for me from a management perspective. And now she has moved her business, which is largely online. She's based out of California. So I work with her all through Zoom. But Chris coaches now female CEOs.
Right.
Female founders and CEOs. And, but that's not to say that her podcast isn't for everybody. Mm-hmm. And her podcast is phenomenal, really short, 20 minutes, digestible, great content for leaders.
We'll definitely link through to that in the show notes. One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
I have so many tools. You're asking for one.
Yeah.
One. I think I'm going to choose Embodia. Embodia is something that I want to highlight. It is a training, learning, education platform with a little bit of sales. It is a Canadian company. So Embodia is EMBODIA. Mm-hmm. We host our entire training platform for our physiotherapists and admin. So anybody who joins the Kids Physio group gets a link to get onboarded and trained virtually. This was obviously instrumental during COVID. Because we couldn't actually get together, but this is what has helped us to scale and have our systems be very easily digestible, rather than just hosting them, whether you're using Google Drive or another platform to store your digital manual.
Yep.
This puts it in a way that's digestible. It also allows us to be able to track somebody's progress of onboarding to see, did they actually do it? So there's that accountability piece, which is really important, as you know, in learning how to actually manage people. So it does give us a way, and it's owned by another female entrepreneur. And then, I love it.
Great. No, I haven't heard of that one. I'll definitely look it up.
Yeah, they actually have a whole platform of online courses that other people can host. So as physiotherapists, if there's any physiotherapists listening to, if you're not in Canada, if you're in Canada, you would have heard this before, but if you're not, they have some incredible online courses for physiotherapists who are looking for that continuing education piece.
Great. Finally, my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day one of starting out?
Day one of starting out. Think about who and how many people we will impact as we continue to grow our business.
Fantastic. Thanks, Laura. That was a great chat. I really appreciate it. The audience, I think, will get a lot of value out of it. Phenomenal growth over 15 years, starting as just with yourself for the first 4 years and now up to 60 FTE, and helping a lot of kids and families out there. So thank you. Really appreciate your time and your mission, what you're doing.
Thanks, Troy. Really appreciate you having me on.
That's it. Thanks for listening. Please leave a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. It means more small business owners will find our cast and help people with their business growth journey.